Hi, welcome back. In this video, we are going to learn what a super global variable is. That could sound like a pretty scary term. I promise you it's really simple. It's really easy to kind of understand once we learn it. And this will be the beginning of our login form. We're going to go ahead and make a fully functional login form, and this is pretty much the first thing we're going to need to learn in order to start doing that. So let's erase what we did in the last video here. So we already learned a little bit about variables. We declare variables using the $sign, and we also access variables using the same $sign. So my variable, let's make a string variable, hello, and if we want to echo that out, we can access that variable going my variable. Now, in some ways, this variable is local. It's local to this PHP file. After we declare this variable, and in this case we declared it and then we initialized it with the string here, it will be available to us anywhere after this point, after this line 5 here in our PHP file. So we could open up another PHP script down here and PHP, we can echo it again, or we can change it, or we could assign a new value to it, and it will still know where it is and what we're talking about because we declared it right up here. And that goes also if we had more HTML in here, if we had a table or something, and we could have 100 lines of HTML between these PHP scripts, and it will still know exactly what we're talking about. And we also learned that when we create a function, that variable will not be available to this function. The function will only have access to its own variables. It will not have access to any other variables that we created. Without using the global keyword, we can go global my variable, and then after this line it will know what we're talking about from line 5 here. And the other way we could have done this is pass in a variable as a parameter, and then when we call our function, my function, and then pass in my variable to that parameter, that would have worked fine as well. And then after that, after we call our function here, our function will have access to that variable using its own parameter there, so echo var, because my variable will then become this function's var. I should say this function's var will be a version of whatever we pass to it as a parameter. So we learned a little bit about that. The next thing we need to learn about is super global variables. And as the name suggests, it's like a global variable, except it's super, it's better. It's super global variables are not only available anywhere in your PHP file, but it's also available to your functions. It's available anywhere you write PHP. And so we could use, if we had a super global variable, and the first one we're going to learn about is post. This variable post kind of looks like this, and it's an array. We haven't really learned about arrays yet. That's okay. Anytime you see square brackets like this, you're dealing with potentially more than one piece of data inside of it. So instead of maybe post equaling hello, it might equal hello and goodbye and welcome back, and a bunch of other strings kind of listed in an array. And the way a post super global variable works is anytime we type post, just like this, $ underscore all capitals, this variable will be accessible. What's in the variable is another story, which we'll learn about as we go. But this variable will be available not only in our PHP file, but also we could go down to our function and we could echo post whatever, and there's something inside of here which we'll access with a I usually just use single quotation marks, but you can also use double quotation marks, and there's some data in there. And so this, and we could echo this, and I'll just keep this the same just to avoid confusion here. But let's say this is post some data up here, and we echoed that out, and that will work fine. And then we can go into this function and do the same thing without using any global keywords, and it's automatically going to know exactly what we're talking about. So super global variables are always going to be accessible in anywhere you write PHP. So, and don't worry about what post does right now. I'm gonna explain that right now. So if you're kind of lost, don't worry about that. Just kind of keep in mind that the fact that there are certain super global variables that are built into PHP, and all that means is they're available anywhere in your script. So let's erase our function here. And right now, let's go ahead and make a form. So we'll go. So we're going to do that right in our HTML here. This is still in our PHP file, test.php, but we're not opening or closing any PHP tags right now. We're just adding regular HTML. So let's go form method post action, and for the action of this form we're going to use itself. So we'll just put test.php. Close that form off. Input type text. And the real important thing here is the name attribute here for the input tag. The name is what's going to, you can put whatever name you want, but this is going to correspond to our PHP script. So pick a name that's descriptive, and it does matter. Case sensitivity does matter. So if you use small letters, you'll have to, if you use small letters and capital somewhere else, you're going to have to keep that the same when you access that in your PHP script, which we'll look at. So let's do name, user name input, and we'll do another input. We'll just keep this plain text, name, password input, and we'll also need a submit button. Let's do value submit, and that's just what is displayed on our button. Name, login, submit login. Okay, so let's take a look at this and see if we got it right here. Okay, so here's our form. We have two text fields here. The first one on the left will be our username. The one on the right will be our password and our submit button. We can click our submit button right now. Nothing happens except for the page is reloaded because we didn't write any PHP script to tell it to do anything. So that's why nothing's happening, and we're gonna go ahead and change that right now. So let's underneath our form we can open up a PHP script, and let's add a variable here, and we'll name it username, and we're going to set this variable to our super global post, and inside the square brackets use your single quotation marks, and you're going to put the name of your input text field, which in our case is username input. And remember, it is case sensitive. Username input. And let's make a password. And again, we're going to post password input. Okay, so after this, we'll just go ahead and echo username. Okay, so let's run this and see if we got it right here. Okay, so let's type in our username, Bob Smith. Okay, there's Bob Smith. So what happened is PHP took a value that was inputted by a user, and it set a variable, that value, at runtime. So this username got that value through the post super global variable. And we could have also just echoed, we could have wrote echo this highlighted area, and that would have worked just fine. You're usually going to want to put this into a variable because there's other things we need to do to it to protect ourselves from hackers and things like that. We'll get into that much later on, but this is just a basic way of getting data from our user into our PHP script, and from there we can do all kinds of things with it. So let's just go over one last thing, which is the get variable. And the get superglobal variable is really similar to the post superglobal variable. We're going to change this method to get instead of post, and then change these to get instead of post. And that's $_get is get. And let's see what that does. I think I need to reload that. Okay, so what happened here is, and I erased that echo, so I didn't echo it out, but you can see in our URL bar up here, what happened is it added a bunch of stuff after our test.php. It added a question mark, it added a username input, which was one of our text box names. It said equals Bob, and then plus Smith, and plus you could just think of as a space, because you can't put spaces in URLs. So and password input equaled we had a blank, and submit login equals submit, just because we clicked the button. So that might seem kind of strange, but that's all a get superglobal variable does, is it displays all the guts into your URL bar. You might be wondering why you'd want to do that, because that seems really unsafe for a login system or something like that, and it is very unsafe for a login system. But if you're making, say, a search engine, then that might be useful, because if you search for something cool that you found a listing for something you like, you might want to share that link with people, and you can just copy and paste a link like this, and when somebody goes to it, your variables will already be inputted there, and things like that. So that's the reason you can, when you're searching on Google and you copy a listing of something you search for, you can paste it in and go straight back to that listing without typing in something new to the Google search field there. So that's what get does. It just kind of displays everything right in your URL, which is very insecure, but it can be useful for things like search engines, and say if you have a blog or something and you have a blog ID that you want in your URL bar here, that's what the get variable is for. That's the only difference, is post keeps it hidden, get displays it in your URL. Okay, thanks for watching. See you next time.